Now let's install the SQL Server in the offline. To install the SQL Server offline, we need to download the RPM packages from this URL and then we can install them locally. Sometimes the servers may be behind the firewall that doesn't have the internet connection. So in that case, you can download the RPMs and then install those RPMs. So this is offline installation. So let's copy the URL. All right. So if you go here in this URL, you will see the CU4 RPMs, database engine high availability. So you need to download these packages, these RPMs. So in fact, I have downloaded the RPMs here. I have it here. I downloaded all the RPMs, RTM version CU1234. So what we can do is earlier we installed the SQL Server using the online mode. You just download the repository and then you install the SQL Server. So I'm going to wipe out that Linux. This is the Linux server, right? We just install the SQL Server. So what I'm going to do, close that Linux operating system. Delete it and then copy. So basically what I'm doing is I'm refreshing the server back to what it was before installing SQL Server. So we installed the SQL Server using online. Now we are going to install the offline. So let's start the Linux server. Okay, all right. So now we got the fresh operating system. We have no traces of let's create the temp folder. Let's copy. So I'm going to copy the RPM packages. So let's copy the latest versions. I think this one should be sufficient. And copy the tools. Okay, so this is database and then agent, SQL Server agent. So both are in this package, and this is tools. And this tools, it needs the other two packages. Those are dependent packages. So let's proceed with offline installation. So now you have downloaded these RPMs from this URL. and then you move on to and then you copy those RPMs to the folder. So I copied this to temp folder. So here I have. And now I need to local install. So before that, you need to verify if there is SQL Server running on this machine. There is no unit found. Good. So is there any processes running? No, there is no processes. Right? Is there firewall? Yeah, firewall is running. So you may have to disable and then stop that firewall. Now let's proceed installing the SQL Server. So you can see to check the dependencies if SQL Server depends on any of the other packages, and you can say minus qpr, and then this is the database engine. So it will list if there are any dependencies missing. So if any missing dependencies, we have to fix them. We have to install those dependencies first and then install the database. So this is the command to install. So here what you are saying is local install, and then this is the package that you wanted to install. You don't need to check any repository because you are not installing from repositories. You have the file here, so you're going to do a local install. So that's what you're saying. So you install locally and then don't check the repositories. So just copy it and paste. Okay, so the thing is, so it is installing. Okay, the installation is completed. Now let's run the setup. The configuration setup. So if you run this configuration setup, it will ask some questions. You want to accept the license and then the edition, etc., etc. So what we are going to do is this time we are going to we're going to pass the parameters to that setup, the configuration setup. That way, okay. So this is accepting the license, developer edition, SA password, TCP port. You don't need to pass. By default it is 1433. And then you can specify the master data file to be on a different location than the default one. So you can remove it for now because we don't have a different path now. We can set it up later. And then agent enabled, yes, delete. So agent enabled true. And then dump directory, the database directory, default database locations, memory limit. Memory limit, you may want to set up 2048 2 GB, and then the backup directory. Okay, so these are the options I wanted to set. And since I'm running as a root, I don't need to specify sudo. So let's configure the SQL Server. Okay, so let's so the SQL Server is running now. So it is enabled, the status is running, so everything is good. So we install the SQL Server, and then we need to install the client tools. So let's see what. Okay, so it says the package is installed. Alright, so next step, disable the firewall. We did it, and then add the port. We don't need to, because since we disabled the internal firewall, we don't need to add this. And in the last video we have seen this is the place where the binaries would be installed, and this is the place where we have the database files. When you install SQL Server, it creates the user called MSSQL. It creates a user called MSSQL, and it creates a group called MSSQL. So it creates a user, and then the group is 984, and the SQL Server software, it runs under this user account. So you can see that here. So you can see that here MSSQL, it is running under this user account. So the MSSQL user account is a passwordless account. So there is no password for that. You cannot log into MSSQL and then run anything. So these files, the database directory, and then whatever the configuration files will be created under MSSQL account. So let's see that. So it is owned. So this is the place where we configured the database engine. So this directory is owned by MSSQL, and then all the files under it are owned by MSSQL. Similarly, if you see OPT, this owned by root. So okay, this stuff owned by root, but the configuration files are created under the MSSQL account. You can see the package. So this is the binaries that are installed, and this is the SQL Server. This is the main database engine, and then this is the configuration file, and then a bunch of other utilities are here. Okay, so now let's move on to installing the client. To install the client, first you need to find out if there are any missing dependencies for the client tool. So you can run this command. So here you are saying RPM query, and then the dependencies. Okay, nothing. Alright, I don't see any missing dependencies, so we can install the client. So the Microsoft recommendation says to remove this package. Let's run this command. There are no packages installed, so nothing happened. So now let's install. First you need to install this. Okay, so to install the Microsoft tool, the client tool, you need to install this, and it depends on this one. So you need to install one by one the dependency order. Okay, so once you install, you need to export those binary path into your profile, otherwise you can't access the client tools. So this is the place where the client tool is installed, so you are adding them to your path profile basically, and you are sourcing them to profile. Now you can do SQL CMD. Okay, so SSIS we are not going to install. So that's how you install the SQL Server offline. So you download the RPM packages, and then you can install with yum local install. You can use RPM command to install, like how you query the RPM packages. Yum local install is another way of doing it. Now let's try to connect. Refresh. Okay, so here you can see earlier we created the test DB. Now let's create database. So remove the enforced policy. You can run the commands as usual. You can take backups. So when you take backup, the backup goes to where OPTMSSQL data folder. So I'm running full backup, and then run log backup. So these are those log backup, and then this is full backup. So I copied the backups to the backup directory. Now you can delete the database and then restore the database from the backups. Okay, so I think because I used the you need to change the directories. The SQL service runs under MS SQL account. So everything, whatever SQL service access, it has to be under MS SQL. It cannot access the files owned by root. So you have to change. Since I'm in root, I will say MS SQL. The group is MS SQL SQL backups. So backups. Okay, so now let's go here. Okay, so now I restored the database from the full backup and then the log backup. All right. So the jobs in the SQL agent, you can create jobs. So I'm creating a database backup job. So let's start that job. So now we got the new backup. Okay, so that's a so the agent is pretty much the same. The jobs you create and then manage the jobs, but there are a lot of Windows related PowerShell you cannot run. But to run the PowerShell, I think you have to download the PowerShell package and then run the PowerShell commands. So this is how you create the jobs. Pretty much it's same what you do in Windows. Windows version, so you will see the same stuff. So the event viewer that may not be there. Here you'll have a different way of reporting. So the logins and then the tables, a lot of things are pretty much same. Anything that is related to specific to Windows, it might not work. So now let's take a look at the configuration. So the properties here. So you can set the memory. There is no minimum memory. So there is no maximum memory. There is one memory limit that you can set in SQL Server Linux. I guess since we configured, I think we configured the yeah, we ran this. So let's take a look at okay, we set the memory limit to 2 GB. Okay, so I'm not sure if it set that value. Let's restart the SQL Server. So it is still showing some different number. All right, not sure. Okay, so minimum memory, maximum memory, that may not be working for Linux. So here you can see you cannot change the values here. So these database default location, the user database, the default locations, you have to change it through configuration utility. Let's say, for example, so right now the default the database files location is this folder. Okay, so now you wanted to create So these two folders, these are the default database, sorry, the data and logs location. Okay, so you have to run the configuration utility. Let's run the configuration utility. This is the configuration utility. So file location default data directory. Okay, so you have to say, instead of list, you say set okay, let's see the syntax. Okay, so you don't need to say equal to, you just say this. Similarly, log directory. Now you can see that the default database location is SQL data, the logs and backs. We changed everything here. We cannot change from here. We have to use the configuration utility to change those values. So when you change those values, what happens is this file, it puts an entry in this file. So instead of running this script, the configuration utility, instead of running that, you can manipulate this file. For example, you can say configuration file, so you can set it back to data, right? Once you set that value, you need to make sure the the value is correct. Okay, so if you made some mess, there is a utility, there is option called validate. So you can say, when you run this utility, configuration utility, it maintains this file, it put entry here. Okay, if you manually make some values here, you need to make sure you do the validation. If validation is successful, then that means you did good job. Otherwise it won't start. For example, if I remove a D here, okay, and then I go here and say validate, there is a unknown setting file location. Okay, there is a problem here. I cannot validate that. So now it looks good. So in order to take these values into effective, so you need to restart the SQL Server. So you need to run this command. Okay, so here I am saying 55. I wanted to run this line, so it is going to restart the SQL Server. Alright, so now let's create the database. This time test db2. So now you can see it changed the path SQL data and SQL logs. No more MS SQL data. So whatever the values, if you want to change, you can change and click OK. The database is created. Okay. So when you take backup, so you can see that here the path is by default it is taking the SQL backups path, the default SQL backup directory. Okay, so I just backed up. Okay, so let's see what else we need to cover in this configuration. Okay, it looks like you can change. Let's see if we can change the value from here. It looks like this is editable. Alter failed for the server. A severe connection. See, I think it won't work. You cannot change this because this has to be executed by this has to be changed by this utility. This utility, or you need to go to this file and manually change the value there. So SQL Server cannot open this file and make a change. Okay, so these configurations are not in the sys.configurations table. If the configurations are in a table in the master database, yeah, you can change it here. Yeah, it looks like it is allowing to change, but you don't know what to change, so that's why it's throwing error. So it is throwing error that you don't understand what it is saying. I can't change it. You can do for what? Why? This is what happened. You got the configurations not in the table, it's in the file. So that's why it is failed. So similarly, you can change this, but at least you can see what values are here. Okay, so let's cancel and then come back to this facets again. You can see there are other values. I don't know, this is something wrong. Install shared directory still C drive. Not good. This C drive is Windows. It is showing C drive. So there are some things not fixed. Root directory C drive, that didn't change. Product level is RTM. Oh yeah, it is RTM. So the resource version is 3022. 3022 is we installed the latest version. Okay, so now let's go to auditing, configuration. Here the things looks pretty much the same. Configuration, server information. Here if you see tempdb log path is all the backslash, and here the primary file is all forward slash, and here it is C drive. Okay, so a lot of things, a lot of work still needs to be done. Okay, all right, let's see what else. Jobs, we created one job. There is alerts, operators, error log. So here SQL Server logs. Yeah, I think it is opening that error log file. It is opening this file. So unsafe or safe assembly. Yeah, this is the last message. So yeah, you are basically looking at this file, this error log file here. So here you can see whatever the messages it has thrown so far. This is a typical SQL Server error log. You can see how the SQL instance starts, and then recovery process. The the TCP port, whatever. All right, so that's how you configure and then change some of the configuration settings. Let's see if there are any other configuration settings. So you can change the default backup directory. So we created the testdb2. The files are created here. I just want to show you that. So these are the default. You can change the default backup directory, data directory, and then dump directory, the SQL sorry error log directory to a different location. Okay, and even you can change the master database location, but you cannot change the MSDB and the tempdb locations. It has got to stay in MSSQL, where OPT MSSQL data folder, the default location. Okay, so if you are installing always on, you will be setting up the HADR enabled option. All right, so the memory limit you wanted to set for the SQL Server, and then if you are using encryption, the force encryption, network IP address, TCP port. If you want to use different port than 1433, you can set up that. And then this is the database mail profile and SQL agent enabled. We set it as yes to use the SQL Server agent. And then the SQL Server error log file. You can change the error log file to a different path than MSSQL log folder. So error logging level, you can change it to different. So you have to look into the manual to see what are the default values. Okay, if you don't specify, it will take the default value unless you specify a different value. So what are these are the values you changed, but rest of the values, whatever the default values, it's taking. All right, so that's how you configure the SQL Server. And there is one other thing I wanted to show you. Okay, so let's see. You have the master database files here, right? So let's say all right, let's remove the master files. Okay, I removed it. So the files are removed. But still the master database is there, right? So if I look at it, the master files, I still see the files are there, right? The database is operational. There is nothing wrong. So I can still go here and I can create some tables in master database. So the row count is 1. So what's happening here? I have deleted the master database files, but still I can create the tables. The database is operational. There is nothing, seems to be nothing wrong. So what's happening here is these files are deleted logically. Okay, they are not still physically deleted. There is a lock SQL Server. It is still using those files. That is the only lock on the files master.mdf and masterlog.ldf. There is still one process holding the lock on these files. Once that lock is released, this file will be permanently deleted. Until that time, it is deleted. It looks to be deleted for everybody other than the SQL Server process, but it is not actually deleted. Okay, no matter what you do, I cannot see that file here. Okay, so if I say ls, if I list, I still cannot see that. Okay, but the files are there, otherwise the database would be stop functioning. In Windows, what happens is the Windows, it is from Microsoft and it is tightly integrated with the SQL Server. You cannot delete the files just like that. You try to delete the master database files when the SQL Server service is up and running. It will not allow you to delete. It will say you cannot delete it because there's some processes using that files. But here Linux is very cooperative. It will allow you to delete, but it does delete logically. That means the file is deleted for sure, but not permanently. Once the final lock on that file is released, once you stop the SQL Server engine, that file will be deleted, gone. Okay, so whatever you created, it is there, it's good until you restart the SQL Server service. Okay, if I restart the SQL Server service, so what happens? The file when once the SQL Server service stops, the file will be deleted, right? So because that's the last process holding the lock on the file. Once that lock is released, the file will be deleted. Okay, fine. Then SQL Server start up and the files are not there. Then will the SQL Server start? That's the question you get. So what happens is when the SQL Server finds that if there are missing system database files, it copies those files from the template. So these master database files, master MSDB, TempDB model, these are created from the template. So when these files are missing, SQL Server Service, what it does, it just copies the database files from the template and then it starts working fine, as if like nothing happened, but there is no data in it. Right now what you did, you created a database, right? You created a database. Where is the testdb2, and then you created some tables. There you did so many things. You have created the logins, SA login, right? This SA login, where is that information? It is in the master database. And then you created the job. Of course, the job information will be in the MSDB, which is okay because you didn't touch the MSDB, but the logins and then permissions and then the databases that you created, all that information that is stored in the master database, those are gone. It is a clean slate, start from fresh. Okay, but the files will be there. Files will be there. TestDB files and TestDB2 files will be there. What you need to do in that case, you need to recreate the stuff that you messed up. So if you have a backup, master database backup, yeah, well, you can restore the master database just in case if somebody deletes the master database file behind the scenes, right? Since if you don't create, then you cannot log in because SA password is not there. It's not set. That value is gone, right? So how do you log in the first place? Let's see what happens. So I'm going to restart. So it restarted. So it is running fine. So it says connection is not possible because login failed for SA. Okay, so because the login information is gone from the database, what are you trying to log in? All you got to do is just disconnect. You cannot retry. Okay, so now you have to set the SA password. Okay, so again you have to use that configuration utility to set the SA password. This is the way to set the SA password. So let's see. This is the command. You have to use the same configuration utility, but you have to pass this new parameter. So if you say set, you are setting a new configuration value, but there is no configuration value for SA password, SA login. Okay, so this is stored somewhere in the database. You have to use this parameter to to set the password. So what it does is it just log into the database with some I don't know with what login, but it creates the SA password inside the master database, and then it allows you to log in using that new password whatever you set. Okay. So now let's set the password, because the password is gone with the master database files. So it says the instance is running, you got to stop the instance. Okay. To check the process of MS SQL, you can say, oh, you can check the process like this. This is one way of verifying, or if there is any MS SQL process. Okay, so otherwise you can use systemctl status. You can use like this. So here you can see this is the main process, and 5296 is a child process. Okay, the main process and then child process. And this one you are executing this command. So this one, what is that? Yeah, this one. So this is the one, the process, your process. Okay, so now you got to stop it. So and this time I'm just going to kill 5294, right? I can also do that way. So let's see status. Status is still running. Okay, 5528. This time it changed actually. So kill 5. I'm not gracefully stopping it. I'm just killing the process to see, can I do that way? Can I stop the SQL Server that way? Okay, so let's see 5530. Okay, now it stopped. It's not there. Status is inactive. Now you can set the SA password. As usual, admin123 capital A. So it is running. Now you can connect. There is a job because you didn't touch the MSDB database, but there are no testdb and testdb2 database. Okay, so you have to attach. So before you attach, what you can do is testdb, these two files, right? So testdb star, go back one step, then db.df. Okay, I don't have that anymore here in the data folder, so everything is in standardized folders. So here if I say SQL I have the testdb and testdb2 here. So I'm going to restore. Let's see what it says. I cannot because it already exists. Testdb. Oh, okay, so it already exists. Change the file name or etc, etc. Okay, so now I got the two database here. Of course, we didn't create anything. Okay, so these are the some of the things that you may have to know before you mess around with the system database files. So even you can move the master database files. Okay, let's move the master database files. Okay, so you have to specify the new path and then like this. So this is master.log.ldf. This is master log file. Okay, so you have to stop MS SQL. Don't restart, because first you stop and then move the existing the data master database files from the default location to this new location. I think we messed up a little bit. SQL logs. It has to be like this. Okay. Yeah, looks fine. So it's running fine. So the master database, it's not here. Model, temp and MSDB still in the default location. So the master is relocated to the SQL data. Okay, and then similarly master log is here. So that's why you relocate from default to a different path. Okay, so let's see what else we got in the configuration. So we discussed how to set a new configuration value. Unset, if you set some configuration value and then you just want to put it back to default value, you can do that. And you can set the trace flags. There are plenty of trace flags, system wide trace flags you wanted to set. You can use the configuration utility to put the any trace system instance wide trace flags. So this is how you set the SA password, just in case you forgot the SA password or you messed up the master database files. You need to recreate the SA password. This is how you do it. And then if you make any changes without using the configuration utility directly to the MS SQL configuration file, then make sure you validate it. So this is how you validate it. So these are the options available in the configuration utility. Okay, so whatever the list displays, those things you can configure. So that list, it will keep changing from CU to from CU1, no, from every CU, one CU to other. Okay, uh, because from CU3 to CU4 there are some changes, significant changes, and the setup, you run this setup parameter, argument. This is not a parameter, you can call it as argument. So this setup, you run this setup uh, after you install the SQL Server. Okay, so the setup, you use setup to specify the edition, and then there are some things you cannot change. Edition, right? Is that configuration value you cannot change, so that you have to set up. So that's when you use a setup option, and then starts a SQL service. But I will suggest you to use system control command to start the SQL service. Okay, but you can also start the SQL service with this configuration utility. I never tried it, in fact. I just copied this uh, from the manual actually. Let's try. This is the first time I'm trying this. Let's see if it works. It says stop service. Let's stop service. Argument invalid. I think it looks like it is removed. It may be available in the beginning, but later on them Microsoft might have removed this argument stop and start service. So I guess even that's the same situation with start. So I guess I got to remove these two options from my list. So how about enable service? Is that removed as well? Yeah, that is also removed. So I guess disable will also be removed. So let's remove all this stuff. So these are the values in general you play with this configuration utility.